In order to get started on our vest, we need to layer all of our materials and get them in the right order so that when we sew them together, we're going to cut them out and then sew them together, they will be ready to quilt. We're going to just turn them inside out and quilt them at that time. We want to layer them starting with the batting on the bottom. Then we're going to take our backing material and we're going to put it on the batting with the good side up. Then we're going to take our vest material and put it on top with the good side toward the backing material. And this sounds a little strange, but it's going to work out at the end when we get ready. So I'm going to layer these and then I'll be right back. I have my layers in the proper order now. We have the batting on the bottom and the backing on it face up with the good side up, and then our vest material on top of that with the good side down. So we're looking at the wrong side of our vest material. Now it's time to put our pattern in place. Because I want a certain motif in the center of my vest, I have creased this material. I took it to the ironing board and found the center line, and I creased it so that I could line the center of the pattern with that crease. I'm going to open my pattern up and get it even. Now you're going to have to decide on your material where you want this to be, where your motifs will be, how far up or down. I have a border at the bottom of mine, and I would like to include some of that border. But I need to check and make sure my motif will still be in the same place. So I'm going to get as much of this border as I can and still get that motif. Then I'm going to pin this pattern down just like you would any other pattern, and we're going to cut it out. So I'll get busy with this and be back with you shortly. I have all my layers pinned together now. This is just like if you were making a dress, only we have more layers to it. Make sure before you cut anything, if you can see through this, make sure your motif is where you want it. I'm going to have a little design on each side of the front and then this in the center of the back. And so I think I'm going to be real happy with this one. If you wanted to do some extra embellishments to this vest, you might want to draw the pattern onto the main piece of material before you cut anything. And then if you have an embroidery machine, you can do your embroidery work before you actually cut it out. Or when you finish this vest, it would look very nice with some hot fixed crystals or some other embellishments. So, take your imagination and just go with it with this vest. But we want to get the basic vest done, and then you can decide what else you want to do with it. When I cut my vest out, I like to use old-fashioned pinking shears. We're going to cut this out, sew around it, leaving the top of the arms open, and then turn it. And if you use the pinking shears, you get that slightly zigzag edge, and you do not have to worry about clipping seams in the corner so much. It turns a lot prettier. So we're going to get started cutting it out. When we get the whole thing cut out, we're going to take the pattern off and leave it pinned together, and then we're going to sew it together on the machine. So we'll get busy. I've cut all of my vest out now. I have my scrap right there, and I will separate it later. You can use the scraps of batting that are left for Christmas stockings and pot holders and things like that. You can also use the scraps of material for future quilts. Now, you can save a step right here once you know your pattern fits on future vests. You can actually take your vest pattern and just slightly pin it to your outside fabric, your top fabric, and draw around it with a permanent marker. And then when you layer them, you won't have your pattern piece pinned to it. You'll just go by the lines that you did. But for the first one, we want to do it this way, and then if we make any alterations, that will be fine in the future. The next step, I'm going to unpin the pattern piece, but leave your layers intact because we're going to pin them back together just like they are so that we can sew them all around the edges except for the top of the arm openings. And we will be able to secure them together, and then we'll turn them inside out. So I'm going to be taking these pins out for a while. As I take my pins out around this pattern, when I get to a point such as the top of the shoulders or anywhere ever so often, I'm just going to peel back the pattern piece before anything can get dislodged and go ahead and pin once in a while. And then I'll add some more later. But we want to make sure our layers don't move too much as we're working with them. When we take this scant 1/4 inch seam around the outside edge, we want to make sure everything is even at the edge. And this will ensure that nothing shifts on us. I'm just about finished with this, and then I'm going to take my pattern piece. Now take care of this pattern. You may need to adjust it for your next vest, so you want to save it. If you make any adjustments, you'll start from that. Now I have this here. I'm going to come back and put a few pins back around the edges so that everything stays in place for my sewing. We're ready to get our vest underway now. I have it pinned. I have my layers. The batting is on the bottom, and then you have the backing and the top face to face, so you're looking at the wrong side of your outside fabric. We're going to take it, and I have my machine set up for a pretty tight stitch, about 2 1/4 on my machine, but you want it tight enough that when we turn this, we're not going to poke through when we get those curves pushed out. We're going to start at the top of this seam right here. And we're going to leave these 2 seams. There will be 4 places on your vest we do not sew, and it's where these seams meet, so do not sew those. We're going to start at the top of the front of the vest. We're going to get it under here. On my machine, I have to make it go to the right edge of the presser foot, and that is my scant 1/4 inch seam. You figure out where that is on your machine, and that's where it needs to go across. If you do not want to do a scant 1/4 inch seam, just remember it may alter your vest, and you might want to make the next one a little larger if you use the sewer's 5/8 inch seam. But I use the scant 1/4 inch, and it works out really well. Now we're going to take it. I'm going to get my foot piece there. We're going to take it. Hold your thread so they don't make a bird's nest on the back. Take a couple of stitches. Get close to that first pin and take the pin out. Do not sew over your pins. You'll hurt your machine. Machines are expensive, and they will last years and years if you take care of them. And you can go around this pretty quickly. We have our zigzag edge on there from the pinking shears. Just make sure all 3 layers stay even, and let's get busy and get this vest together.